Good evening. My name is Eric Krathwohl. I'm with the law firm Rich May in Boston. I'm a general business lawyer with a focus on energy and telecommunications matters. The structure of this 15-minute session will be first my presentation for about half the time and then questions and answers. So let's get started. What kinds of clients of yours might want to get involved with renewable energy? The simple answer is any business or real estate owners that either want to save money on their electricity costs and or want to be able to claim that they are green should look into renewable energy. Claiming you're green is helpful perhaps for assisting marketing a company to its customers or to investors. Clients seeking to go green often will own a sufficient amount of space for installation of a distributed energy generation source, whether it's open land, farmland, a large roof, or a large parking lot. But sometimes the client, like my firm, just wants to purchase the environmental attributes to be able to market themselves as a sustainably oriented business. They need not be a big consumer of electricity, but often that is helpful because the installation of renewable energy facilities or the purchase of renewable energy is more attractive in quantity. And if the renewably produced electricity can be consumed on site, that is often the most economic approach. If the energy cannot be consumed on site, the electricity will often be sold back to the local electric distribution company, i.e. the grid, or may be sold to a local municipality, to other branches of the same business, or even to third-party businesses. Depending on the structure of the transaction, such sale may be through a developer, a marketer, or by your client, business electricity customer. The next question is, what kind of energy source or technology are we talking about? There's quite a wide range of electric generation technologies that are considered renewable. For example, there's tidal, geothermal, wood burning, hydropower, wind, and solar. I am going to focus primarily on solar because with a limited number of restrictions, solar can be the most practical for customers in several ways. Though economies of scale pertain to most of these technologies, to some extent including solar, solar can be very economically deployed on a small, medium, or large size. It can be installed most anywhere that is not overly shaded. And it does not depend on a particular location for high wind or access to geothermal resources, for example. Further, the price for solar panels has come down very significantly over the past several years, so that solar is almost as economic as utility-supplied electricity on its own without subsidies, and with the so-called subsidies, which are additional payments for the environmental attributes. Often solar generation is comparably priced to utility supplied power. In Massachusetts alone, there are thousands of solar installations ranging from a few kilowatt panel array on a small private house to a utility scale generation facility of several megawatts capacity. In between these two extremes is likely where your client would be with a few hundred kilowatt installation on their commercial property. There are some wind turbines that are deployable on a distributed generation basis, but generally wind turbines have to be in large combinations and in specific locations that have high wind. So the distributed wind generation, at least in New England, has never gained very much credibility. I will note that in two cases, my firm, Rich May, did do fairly large individual wind turbine installations on businesses' property. And much of that output was used for the businesses themselves, and significant amounts were sold to a nearby town. Size is also a factor which leads to complexity. So the bigger the installation of any sort, but particularly wind, opposition arises. In the northeastern United States, at least, that opposition has pretty much forced wind into remote and floating ocean locations. For specific examples of clients that might seek to get involved with renewable energy, we have seen and helped clients with large, big box stores with a high demand for power, real estate developments, and a water company with installation of solar on several buildings or over a parking lot, farms seeking additional cash flow from installation of solar on their fields, and real estate developments with hydro facilities on site from which the developer would sell electricity to its tenants. That sale gets into other regulatory issues, but that's a topic for another time. Note that solar and wind are intermittent sources of electricity in that they depend on the variable availability of the wind and the sun. So they will not be constantly generating electricity 24 hours a day. To address that issue, oftentimes renewable energy installations will benefit significantly from the addition of energy storage. Batteries have been around for a long time, but only recently has storage really been so efficient and developed that it is able to be combined with generation and make an efficient project. So more specifically, how will your client get the benefit of the solar facility? There are a number of routes that a customer can use. If the client is installing solar on its own property, it can do so by leasing space to a solar developer who will install and own the solar panels and will sell the output sometimes to the client landowner or sometimes to a third party. In the case of the developer owning the solar facilities, that developer will retain the environmental attributes and any tax benefits. The client real estate owner may simply receive lease payments from the developer, or it may also purchase power from that developer. The lease route will not put any typical developer risks on the client property owner in terms of having to make cash outlays for permitting, interconnecting, and constructing the facility. But most times the lease will have the client property owner share to some extent in those risks by giving up control of the space for perhaps a couple years with only minimal payments, and the more substantial lease payments will wait until actual construction and operation of the electric generation is complete. I have even seen developers insist on certain levels of economic benefits to be realized before being obliged to make a full rental payment to the client property owner. Another option is for the client property owner to purchase the solar panels on an installed basis. In this situation, there will be a typical EPC, energy, engineering, procurement, and construction contract. One particularly important provision of EPC contracts for renewable energy facilities is the production guarantee. Also, in these circumstances of the client property owner owning the solar or renewable energy facilities, they will have the output, the electric production, to sell, as well as the environmental attributes. Such a sale could be to the electric distribution company in some cases, a local municipality, to another division of the same company, or even to a third unrelated third party. Of course, that sale has to be documented, as well as the sale of the related environmental attributes. A simpler approach, at least for the client property owner, is just to enter a contract for the output of the renewable facility and or for the environmental attributes. There's a number of risks relating to getting a new electric generating facility online that are reflected in energy contracts in different ways, specifically interconnection, permitting, and the construction risks, and as well as the production risks, all of which lead to economic consequences and can impact the profitability of the investment. Thank you very much. I hope that you've learned something.